Good evening, everyone. This video is going to be a trading review and support session for July the 6th, 2022. I'm actually using Zoom for the first time in the meeting. So we went through and got people or Sean hooked up on that. So far so good. So let's just start going through the session. Today was the FOMC meeting minutes day. So it wasn't a very good trading day, but I did, get some experience with the trailing stop and learned a few things there, and probably make a small adjustment for tomorrow. And so I'll talk about that for a little bit later. So we were coming in. Let's just go through the pictures real quickly. Right, so we ended up with a small up day, right? Yeah, as you can see, the range was not very large at all, right? But we did end up a little bit over the 20-day moving average and a little bit over yesterday's close as well. If we take a look at the big picture chart for today, and you'll see some of what we're really kind of doing, right? So here's London open. Here's our open, right about it there, right? So you can see it was just really kind of choppy, not really going anywhere. And then I finally put myself on timeout because I wanted to take a look at history and what was going on there. And then at 11 was when the minute meetings were kind of released, and it was pretty crazy. But ultimately, it kind of broke out. Expectation, there's no new expectations. They're still talking about either a 50 basis point or a 75 basis point move in the July FOMC meeting, and basically, not a lot of revelations. It's just that kind of news creates a lot of volatility, and it's just whatever it is going to be. So no new news. The other thing they did is they are fully committed to bringing inflation under control, whatever it takes, even if they have to make money access even tougher, and they do that by raising the interest rates. Okay, so let's kind of go through. You remember I was using stops and trailing stops today, so let's just kind of go through. So here's the open area, right? It kind of broke through, it's taking off. So my first trade was positive, and wasn't really completely clued into what kind of day it's going to be just yet. And I'm kind of scrolling through. So I took a trade here, right? I think this is only the second trade that I took. I think I captured them all. Um, and it got a 1 point stop out, and I'll go through my trailing stop. So if it hits 4 ticks positive, it brings it the stop, keeps bringing it down and down and down, so it comes out to a 2 point stop. Uh, from that point, meaning it's a 1 point stop. So I lost 1 point on that one, right? And I was trading it as though there was going to be some follow through, right? Traded it here. Probably wasn't a very good decision to do it, and that was a 4 point stop, right? So the maximum stop is 4. I'll just go ahead and tell you now. I don't think 4 is required if we're taking reasonably good entries. So tomorrow I will be using 3, right? And I'll make some a little adjustments on entries as well, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Right, trying it. Here I am thinking that at some point it's going to have some follow through. It's coming into 7 o'clock. We did have news at 7 today, and it pretty much went crazy at the news time, and so got in. Where's the arrow for this one? Here. There's another entry that wasn't that wise, right? And, it was running away from the 2 by 200. I thought it might be pretty good. I chased it too far down, right? And it was even kind of going into Ultraflex. Not a great move. Another maximum stop. All right, 4 points. It kind of came down again. I tried it again, and another 1 point stop, right? So the market is not trending well at all. And here I am playing around with stops. So let me kind of stop here for a minute, but talk about this. And that is, if I hadn't have been using stops and I had chosen to, fight some of these trades, it could have been kind of difficult, right? I would have certainly needed to reverse in here somewhere, right? If I chose to do that. And it did move enough, but I would have had to add to it and all sorts of things like that. But at least, so it could have been a little bit scary. And if I had reversed at the wrong point, for instance, and have it come back, so it could have been back and forth with the zigzag kind of a day that it was. So another 4 point stop, another 1 point stop. It was breaking out to the upside here, so this was a good trade, right? A good quick trade. This trade was good, even though I waited too long, right? So I'll come back to that in not to this trade, but the concept that I'm looking at that's a little bit more reliable, I think. This was a good trade coming up through at 722. So I'm not too bad at that point for the bad trading day that it is. But here's kind of where I hurt myself. It looked like it was trying to break out, but it's not a breakout kind of a day. So I entered up in here, got a 4 point stop out, right? Entered up here again, right? Again, my entries are too late. Another 4 point stop out, and I think I had one more before I put myself on timeout. Maybe not. Maybe that's when I put myself on timeout, and I wanted to go through some. I know I had put myself on timeout. All right, so that was kind of my problem today. Late entries on expecting it to kind of follow through. There was almost zero follow through today. So let me kind of show you, especially when we're using tight stops and trailing stops. This is a better entry technique. Okay, so let me go back to the first one, because the first one was not a bad example of this technique. And it's not, I mean, we've talked about just about every technique in the world, okay, but just to kind of emphasize this, okay, so this is a pretty dangerous time of the market, right? I'm not really suggesting we trade that, but then it breaks out to the upside, right? That's still, especially this time of day, it's still not a very good time to trade, right? But then it pulls back some, right? Pulls back some, and it pulls back into the flex zone, right? And then breaks out again. It works, even though I was still a little bit late here. Maybe I was waiting for a little bit more time, right? So that's a pretty good trade, right? Now let's go the other way, right? So here, now we have flashed down, and we're under both flexes, right? So this is where, just because we're breaking under the EMA, this is where you do not want to enter, right? And we've said it before. I've said it before. It's best, especially if you get a couple of big down bars that are already kind of at the EMA, right? Let it come back into the at least to the edge, if not into sideways a little bit, the flex zone, right? And then catch it, when it's starting to lean over again, right? So if you let it break down, entering in here, anywhere in this bar, right, you could see that it would have come down very quickly, even though it was kind of coming in here, right? So this is, you can still call this counter trend. So it's a little bit of an aggressive move, but you certainly don't want to chase it in the middle, or potentially at the end of a push, right? You want to catch it when it's curving back over again, right? You can even see the same thing, and I'm gonna kind of draw some of these so you can see. All right, so this push is ended, right, or could end, right? So it's time to let it bounce back up again. It bounces back up into the flex zone, right? And it's starting to roll over, and it hasn't really rolled over yet enough, right? It is breaking down. So wait till it is coming back down, and so breaking this level, and it's difficult when it's coming into the minute average, but as you can see, right, it would have delivered something there, right? It pulls back up into the flex zone again, kind of come back down. Those are a little bit bolder moves, but the price action is what we're looking for. The price action is what we're looking for, and then we just have to make a decision on each one. Do we trust it enough to go through anything? It's best when they don't have to go through anything, right? So here, right, it finished its push, right? So you need to wait till, this is not a great time, right? But at least, and this is now, it's over both flexes. So you have to wait a bit, right? It comes back down, wait a bit, wait a bit, wait a bit. But this it's not coming, it's barely under fast flex. So this was not a great trade. It is just starting to break out of the 5 minute. So that's not a good one, right? So if it pulls up and you don't get a very good effort again, then it means it's probably going to go back up, which is exactly what it did. All right, so here, right, it's broken back up, letting it pull back, but it never really, it was so fast, it's not even over ultraflex again, right? So it pushes down. So there's the down move. Well, here's the first down move, right? Pulls back up a little bit into the flip, and then it's breaking down the other way, right? Hopefully this is clear enough, right? It's just these little wiggles. All right, so moves down, pulls back up, and then moves back down again, right? So that's kind of what we're looking for. And where do you take it? Well, you want to take it, maybe when especially when it's in the middle, when it's breaking down this pivot area and breaking and running away from something, right? And in this case, it's also running away from the 3-minute close and the EMA. Those are still very important. It's just I have to be patient to let it come back and test those things and continue the trend. It may not be a very strong trend, but so let's call it continue the move, right? So here right, it didn't really let it pull back to my preferred area, right? It did pull back. The reason I took this, it came back to the 2x200, right? But it wasn't good enough, right? What it really wants is something different, right? So it never really gave a good reason to take another short. Didn't really give, the trend is negative now. It didn't give a good reason to take a long trade either, right? So and this is kind of a little bit before 7 o'clock. So it's just really a bad trading time, right? So we're going to pass on all, try to pass on all of these trading times, right? But, as we get closer to that 7 o'clock rush, right? Sometimes it does the push, right? So you can see big bar. Don't chase that, right? Don't chase it with the tight stop. And I'm definitely trying to not fight a trade, and you can't fight it with the 3-point stop, as I'm going to try going forward. You have to let it pull back, letting it pull back to something, right? And it pulls back to the 3-minute close. It's in the flex zone, and it pops back up over the flex. So if you'd taken the trade anywhere in here, right, it would have been good. Do you wait till it breaks this, right? That would have given you a 2-bar combination, right, going up in there. But anywhere in here, you would have been safe as long as you don't wait until the EMA zone, right? So we can use tight stops as long as we're not getting in too late. And I'm going to have to practice that. It's certainly not a skill set of mine, and I'm going to have to develop it. All right, so here's the 7 o'clock news. It was untradeable for for really a while. I mean, this was kind of crazy, and so here it did pull back, but it had oh, here's the first one, right? Traded into Ultraflex. This is a no-no, right? But it was kind of coming down. So if you're going to do anything, you maybe have to, and I don't really recommend this, right? Because didn't have any selling volume, but it was coming at that point from the 5-minute moving average, and probably more importantly, the volume point of control. If you gotten in here, right, which I don't necessarily recommend because Ultraflex is still down here, pretty fast move, you would have been okay, right? I waited way too long, and it's close to the EMA. I have to improve my timing on that. Hopefully, you guys are kind of catching on to this. So, all right. So here, right? Let's talk about this one. All right. So it's trying to break out. Don't chase it here. It pulls back, right? So it's still in the middle of a bunch of stuff, right? It still hasn't really declared what it wants to do. Fastflex is still moving down. So here it moves back up, and now at least both of the flexes are aligned, right? And it's coming from the flex zone, right? So anything in here would have done. I entered in and got out before it got too deep into the EMA zone. It's into the EMA zone now, so you don't want to chase it up in here, right? In this case, let's see. You were at 1 3/4, and it pulled out to, yeah, you probably would have been, you could have been stopped out here, right? So you definitely don't want to be taking these trades up in here. But if it pulled, it peaked here, pulled back in, right, and you wait for it to come take out the next this pivot and or a really good bar, right? So this bar had a 2-bar combination, right, going into the 25% upper line, right? It's followed by a good bar. So I mean that would have been a good trade. All right, here's another challenge, right? So it goes up, right? And we've talked about, once it exceeds the EMA, right, and it's having difficulty going up, I'm talking about the EMA zone, and it is. And now it's predominantly under the 3-minute close, right? So going short here, unless you're getting a lot of selling, is a counter trend trade, kind of aggressive, right? So, but it makes a push, right? And then, right, it does a pullback, right? So it's either going to have to really change directions to get anything going on the long side. So nothing is going to be aligned on the long side for some time. But when it comes back down and takes out that pivot and takes out the EMA, now it's under that 3-minute close, then it goes down. I got in way late and made the trade, but this is way late. We really need to be faster. I need to be faster. All right, so this is completely indeterminate here. Nothing good to trade in this time frame. That doesn't mean I didn't try, but I don't see it. Okay, here it is. So at least I waited a bit, right? So it tried to push, came back down, really didn't break out, came back down, still didn't break out, came back down. This if it traded this expansion here, right, it would have been going into yesterday's close in the slow area, right? So you would need to let it pull back up and then break down again. Well, it didn't do that, so it means it's trying to head the other way. So it kind of breaks out, and so I took, coming from here, I did take it, and it went up, right? So it wasn't. It's kind of coming from this. So this is really almost a breakout trade instead of waiting for it to pull back. And so here I got too aggressive on the short side, right? Because it's coming from here, and so this was the it didn't take anything out. It was kind of going into. Oh no, I went long. So say, why would I have gone short there? Again, pretty late trade, right? So it's trying to break out, right? It's not really giving that much of a clue. Now, if I'd gotten in here and I didn't because there was some stuff right there, right? The 5 minute moving average, that kind of stuff. Even at that, it was breaking out and I would have made money. I waited way too long, right? And again, way up here towards the EMA and with tight stops, got stop a 4 point stop. So if I just took even all the 4 point stops and made them into 3 point stops, I would have had a better day and not and lost less. Right here again, another mistake. It's trying to break out. Right here, it didn't really break out yet. Here, this is a pretty good bar, right? And it's going across both flexes. This works better when it's coming from the very top or the very bottom. But I chased it. Wasn't a very good trade. I think probably my last 4 point stop before I put myself on timeout until I kind of regroup here a little bit. So it pushes down, right? But it's in the fast zone. It's trying to make up its mind what it wants to do, right? And then it finally breaks out through here. Could have been a trade down through here, right? If you got in soon enough. It's pulling back in here, right? So and you got to wait till Ultraflex and everything turns. So this would have been okay, except it's kind of going to the 2x200. But if it's kind of breaking down through there, I mean, so earlier, even though it might seem aggressive, an earlier trade might be okay because trailing stop is going to move pretty rapidly, right? So here kind of breaks out here, right? So you got to wait for this would have worked, but I think you got to wait for a pullback, right? It comes in here, kind of settles, right? Kind of settles, and is popping up again. Probably could have gotten a trade in here, even though it's not a great trading day, right? If you wait for the little pullback, then you're better off, all right? Can't handle the thing, so it pops back down, right? It's kind of going sideways a little bit as they're saying, it's hitting the edge of Ultraflex, but not really into it, which is okay, right? Sometimes you just go sideways enough to hit the edge of Ultraflex and then goes down, right? That would have been a good entry. That would have worked, even though it was it's testing, and then got a high volume, right? Pushes it through. Kind of comes back into this area, right? Coming back down. And you're just kind of waiting, right? And it's coming back through yesterday's close again and breaks down. Here, pulls back up, but at this point, by the time it breaks down, unless you got a pretty good entry, then that would have been a more difficult trade. And this is a pretty crummy trading day. I'm just kind of pointing out if we're really sharp, even on a crummy trading day, and we're making better entries, we can find trades that we can get out of with profit. And if it's a crummy trading day, we can wait a little while. This is after the hour, right? This is a much better environment, right? It's slightly bending over, right, after the hour. I had already put myself on timeout and I was looking at history then. But good trade there, right? Could have been had. I mean, anywhere in there you would have made money. Right now it's in a trading zone. I don't even know what this is looking like. I wasn't even watching the market. Pops up, right? Pulls back a little bit, maybe, right? It's a little bit aggressive, but it is running away from the 3 minute moving average, right? Or the 3 minute close, right? Pops up, can't trade that one yet. You got to wait, right? And this is in let's just skip that because it's in the fast zone and I hate the fast zone. Just makes it past the fast zone into the 3 minute moving average, right? So there's a top, there's a slightly higher top, complete rejection at the 3 minute moving average, right? So it comes down, it's kind of going sideways a little bit here, still in the fast zone. If you're aggressive, you could probably take a trade there and gotten out. But now it's trying to work itself out back up to now it's above both flexes. You kind of gotta wait. You gotta wait here too, right? Even though it's a good coming from a little pullback, and it's a big down bar. I would say kind of wait, make sure you know where it's going, even after it breaks down underneath the minute average, you could do this. Let's see how far it popped. Let's say it hit 3, came up to hit 4. Yeah, it didn't even get a 2-point pullback. So you would have been okay. Look at all the blank space you've got, though. I mean, blank space is good, right? So anything in there, I'd already stopped trading in that time frame. And here, made a push back up to here. No sudden moves, right? And you're above the Ultraflex. Another push here, didn't really break out. We got the 25% lower line here. I think that's the lower line. Pulls back up, and it's just going sideways, right? It's going to break out one way or the other. This is a pretty good bar here, and then ultimately it breaks down. You could have got a trade there. And then now it's going to be more aggressive, and sometimes we may have to take these, right? When it does start to take a trend, if you haven't got your point satisfaction yet, or if you want to be a little bit more aggressive, right? If it pulls back into these areas and it's starting to roll over, right? You can take these, but that's when it really has started to trend, right? And see how at this point the EMA is stepping pretty nicely, and then we're after 830. So there's nothing there that's new, but if we're not going to defend and add in those sorts of things, it's something that we need to be I need to certainly be more sensitive to, and not chase trades too low and wait for little pullbacks and tests and resumption of the move. You can get a resumption of the move even if it's not a heavily trending day. All right, I think we still got a little bit of time before I run out of time on this initial Zoom meeting. Any questions on that? Okay, I'll try to cover it a little bit tomorrow morning as well. I'll show my bracket setup that I'm using. So the only change I did it from today is I just moved the initial stop to 3. So in case it really jerks me around, at most I'm risking 3 points on a trade, and as you can see, if it's a really bad entry, I can get stopped out. But sometimes if it's even on a great entry, right, the trailing stop gets me out at something much less than a 3-point stop. A couple times today I even had a 1-point stop. Didn't like it, but in each one of those cases I'm kind of glad it did stop me out. Otherwise I would have been in for a little longer ride, right? And we're trying not to do that. All right, so that'll be it for tonight. I'll get this posted. No, I'm not going to try to use Zoom for tomorrow. So let's just go with the normal GoToMeeting. Would you say this was a pretty successful? I mean, you don't see any problems with Zoom? Okay. All right, good. Thank you for your help in getting this initial test done. Yeah, we'll switch in the not too distant future, and then we'll go from there. Maybe we'll try to get everybody to use it. Maybe at the end of a session, make sure everybody can get dialed in and can hear and those type of things. And we'll do all of that before we make the switch. All right. Again, thanks for your help, and we'll see you in the morning, hopefully. All right. Have a great night.